World War I, a petrifying event that occurred during late June 1914, where an Austrian Archduke named Franz Ferdinand was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo, Bosnia. His death triggered the beginning of a war between the Axis and Allied powers. When soldiers experienced traumatizing events such as shell fire, artillery fire, and mud on the trenches, they would write their experiences in poetry. Most of their poems contain unforgettable images such as trenches, barbed wire, gas, rats, and mud, which would scar most of the soldiers that participated. A trench poet's poem would provide the necessary imagery to immerse and inform the reader about the war environment that the poets lived in. The term trench poets originally became known as war poet or war poetry. A trench poet named Robert Graves discovered the origins of such terms. War poet and poetry were used during the times of World War I, where civilians and soldiers wrote war poetry in English. However, there never was a defined identity for a group of people who focused on World War I poetry. In January 1915, however, a trench poet by the name of Rupert Brooke instigated the identity of World War I poets through his poem called The Soldier. Dean Inge read Brooke's poem in a cathedral on an Easter Sunday of 1915 and considered the character in the poem as an anointed saint that would define World War I poets as the soldier poet. The poem read, "If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. Think, too, this heart, all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, give somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learned of friends, and gentleness, in hearts at peace, under an English heaven." Trench poets had the choice of writing a poem that would go against or support wars in general. Rupert Brooke happened to be one of the few that supported war and favored patriotism for his country. From the poem, Brooke appears to fight for his homeland and will be willing to die as long as he returns back to England at peace. Because of Brooke's poem, Graves would see that Brooke and another trench poet named Charles Hamilton Sorley will be known as the war poets of the first generation. Sorley would mock the idea of honor in a war during early October 1915. He had papers with him, and they were only found in his kit after getting killed on the 15th at the Battle of Loos. This sonnet reads, "When you see millions of them helpless dead, across your dreams in pale battalions go. Say not soft things as other men have said, that you'll remember. For, death, how should they know? It is not curses heaped on each gashed head. It is easy to be dead. Say only this, they are dead." Then scanning all the overcrowded mass, should you perceive one face that you loved heretofore, it is a spook. Great death has made all his forevermore. The sonnet captured the horrific events that transpired in the war. The sonnet provides powerful imagery that caught Owen, Sassoon, and Robert Graves' attention to a specific audience with their war poetry. For Owen, his works such as Anthem for Doomed Youth and Dulce et Decore Me followed the gruesome violence of rifles, bombs, and trenches. His message, like Sorley's, focused on the war and its effects, except that Owen's poems contained third-person point of view. In addition, Another difference between Owen and Sorley would be that Sorley is considered the first-generation war poet. Owen, on the other hand, would write from the perspective in the trenches, which helped create the term trench poets, or second-generation war poets. Trench poets are not only English people, but also Irish, Anglo-Scottish, and Jewish. There were women who were also considered trench poets, but were not acknowledged as much as the men. Despite that fact, society changed enough to the point where Vera Brittain and other women slowly accumulated the attention needed to become popular trench poets. Brittain's Testament of Youth book strived to destroy such a patriotic view of women's intelligence in war and the barrier between men and women during the times of World War I. While it was published in 1933, it garnered enough attention that in 1996, a book called Penguin Book of First World War Poetry became published. It contained all the poetry from women during the times of World War I. Each poet had a story to share. Why not take a moment to read some of the harsh conditions of World War I for their sake?